Hey folks, Steelcowboy here, coming to you from the pipe room in the great state of Texas. And tonight we're going to go a little bit off topic from what I have been talking about. I had mentioned to you that in in my world that I tend to do a lot of motorcycling, and pipes sometimes make interesting conversations in those travels. Before we start, I'll do my usual tobacco shout out. And tonight, when I'm smoking here in my trusty cob, you can see I like a lot because it's got some masking tape on it and a little fake silver band that I put on there. But when you get a good one, you don't want to let it go. Anyways, Lakeland Dark, and it's a new blend from Samuel Gaywith, and it's a strong tobacco. I'll show you what it looks like, and if you're familiar with 1792, this is that, except it's natural. There's no Tonkin bean in it, and it'll put your knickers in a knot if you're not careful. And I'll get into that in just a sec. But what I want to talk to you about first is this pipe right here. This is a Stephen Downey pipe, and Stephen is from Vancouver, British Columbia, and that's just darkening, by the way. That's not burning through. The story kind of centers around that. A number of years ago, actually not too many years ago, I take a sip of my trusty lemonade, and I'm on a motorcycle ride with my wife up in western Massachusetts. And I'm not going to share the name of the town. You may be able to figure it out, but to give you kind of the backdrop, it's a beautiful mountain town, but not really a tobacco-friendly place. And one of its claims to fame is that it had some publicity centered around it because they had an ordinance that that kept Christmas lights from being shown in the businesses during the holiday season. So my wife and I are in town, and we are looking to get some lunch, and we come into this cheesemonger shop, a nice little cheese shop, and we pick up some terrific Italian meats and cheeses, and I'm wandering around the shop, and of course I'm walking everywhere being courteous, but walking everywhere with my pipe in my mouth, smoking it where I can, and in the shop unlit in my mouth. And so this woman comes up to me, and she's looking at the pipe, and she's looking at the bamboo excuse me, and the blast, and she says, "Oh, what a beautiful pipe that is. Do you mind if I see it?" So I hand the pipe over to her, and she's caressing it. She's looking at the different parts of it. And she says, "This is really a beautiful piece of art." So about this time, I start to get this little tug on my shirt from my wife, but I'm chatting away, and this woman's chatting away with me, and there's that little constant tug. Well, towards the end of the conversation, the woman hands me back the pipe, and she finally says to me, and she has this kind of thoughtful pause, and she says, "Real men, in my opinion, smoke pipes." And of course, immediately, my chest went out and my shoulders broadened, and I said, "Well, thanks." I said, that's really nice, And so she pays for her stuff. She was ahead of us in line. And she walks out. And we get outside, and my wife says to me, "Do you know who that was?" And I said, she looked familiar, but my wife goes on to say, "Well, that was Karen Allen." And so I'm thinking about Karen Allen, and I know she's somebody that's well known. And my wife says, "Well, you know, from Animal House, and she's Indiana Jones's girlfriend in the Indiana Jones movies." And so I looked at my bride and I said, "So Indy's girlfriend thinks I'm a real man." And for the rest of the day and the next day and the day after, I'm wandering around, pointing out that Indiana Jones's girlfriend thinks that I'm a real man. And so it turned out to be a fun story. The only negative side to it was that after about a week of this, my wife had about enough of it, and that was the end of that. But it just goes back to what I was saying in an earlier video, that people tend to be curious when you're walking around with your pipe. So you'll never know who you might meet or what kind of conversation will be struck up, and sometimes they're negative, but if you're courteous, interesting things happen. I want to go back for a sec to this Lakeland Dark. The term Lakeland is associated with British tobaccos, certain British tobaccos, that come from the Lake District. And those are primarily tobaccos that are made by Gayworth Hogarth and Samuel Gayworth. Those would be the ones that are most well known. Not all Samuel Gayworth blends, but certainly a few of them. 1792 would be definitely one of them. This new Lakeland Dark would be as well. And so many of these blends have been around for a very, very long time. Some recipes have been around for more than 100 years. And they're well-guarded secrets. People tend to refer to them as floral or soapy. Even the unscented varieties have a very distinct smell to them. While they tend to get lumped together under that term, the blends are very varied. And there's lots of different flavors, lots of different scents. The one thing they almost all universally have in common, not all but most, is that they tend to be high in nicotine. And before you run out and try one of these, if you haven't tried them before, you need to know that these tend to be love or hate tobaccos. And a lot of times people will find them a little too floral or a little too soapy, but I find them quite delicious, whether it be scented or unscented. I tend to smoke them in a cob. This particular blend probably won't, but many of these blends will ghost the pipe. So you don't want to go out and take your favorite briar and experiment with Grousmore mixture or something of that nature. A lot of these are comprised of dark fired Kentucky and Virginia. And the Virginias tend to be from Africa, which gives them a different flavor, to me less sweetness than you would get from an American grown tobacco. I'm not an expert, so these are just views from the couch, but that's been my observation. What I find different about these aromatics, particularly the aromatic ones, versus an American style aromatic or Cavendish, is that these tobaccos tend to cellar very well. A lot of popular aromatics on the market today, which I enjoy occasionally as well, are made with food products that don't always hold up over time. And even if they do hold up, there's really no benefit from aging them, or very, very little benefit. A lot of these Lakeland style blends will pick up some additional sweetness. Dark fired tends to be bold, and they come in very beautiful, high quality flakes. They can range from that to very, very thin shag cuts. This particular blend, Lakeland Dark, smells very much of dark fired when you open the tin. It's very kind of smoky, but not in a lot of key away, and very pungent. And like I said, if you're not accustomed to smoking high nicotine or higher nicotine tobaccos, you want to go slowly. But you don't want to pass it up just because some of the things you may or may not have heard about them, particularly if you're, your only experience has been, kind of through the grapevine. Your only knowledge of them has been through the grapevine. Try them, and don't just try one. Pick 3 blends, maybe a couple of scented and an unscented, because again, these are all very, very different blends, although they share some of the same characteristics. Anyway, that's what I got for you tonight. Have a great night, and this is Steelcowboy from the great state of Texas.